Hello again, it's Kathleen with Cross Stitch Antiques, and I haven't been here since March, I believe, when I released my Nashville Market release. I believe that it was early March, and she was Alice Clark, 1844. I had a father kind and true. So here we are, it's May 2022, and you wonder maybe what I've been up to. I've been a busy girl. I've been very productive the past 2 months and have been charting like crazy. I will have 3 new releases in June. And in the meantime, I've been preparing some projects for a number of events I'm participating in, both as an exhibitor and as a teacher. So let's start with that first. First of all, I'm attending for the first time Celebration of Needlework in Nashua, New Hampshire in just a week. So before I start packing up my big car with all of my stuff and travel cross country from Chicago to New Hampshire, I'd like to show you a couple of the models. So keep in mind these are class projects and they will not be able to be released to the public until about a year from now. But the project I'm teaching there is a beautiful portion of the release I've had previously called Band of Roses. So this was my first antique reproduction sampler that I released in 2017. And the project for Nashua's Celebration of Needlework is a project based on this corner, which I have called the New England Chapel. And here you see the chart. So we have the Band of Roses up at the top. You can personalize it with your initials in the year or the initials of a married couple perhaps and give it as a wedding gift. And I stitched my model on 40 count Brea by Needle and Flex with DMC. And it turned out way beyond beautiful, more than I can imagine. And I'm really thrilled with it. So I finished it in a box by Old Colonial Designs, a beautiful box that is available by contacting kp.celebration@gmail.com. It's a 7x7 custom-made box that they hand make, just absolutely beautiful. And you can see how well it fits inside there. So again, it's not going to be available for a year, but there's still time to come to Nashua, New Hampshire, Celebration of Needlework, and take my class. And it starts next weekend, actually this coming Wednesday. So that's one big project that I finished. And speaking of Celebration of Needlework, about a year ago they invited me to teach a class on Cape Cod. It was actually for October of 2021, but during the pandemic, we postponed it for a year. So this fall, in October of 2022, I am thrilled to be able to be going out to Cape Cod, hosted by Celebration of Needlework for a Stitcher's Fall Retreat on Cape Cod, the last weekend of October in 2022. And I have those models also ready. These two are not available to the public for a year from now, but I'd be happy to show you these models in case you would like to join us, and there's plenty of room still to register. So let me show you the flyer for registration, October 27th to 29th on Cape Cod, sponsored by Celebration of Needlework. If there's too much of a glare here, you can go ahead and go on their website, celebrationneedlework.com, and find out more about it. But the project I'm teaching, being on Cape Cod, it's a delight to be able to offer this very rare sampler that is modeled after this antique, which I'm going to show you in a moment, and it's called the Seashell Sampler, and how fitting for a seaside retreat Stitchers weekend. And here's the antique. Beautiful sampler. Very rare to find seashells on a sampler, and we have the common verse that we've seen before on many antique samplers, Jesus, permit thy gracious name to stand. Now you'll notice that this antique is done in long satin stitch and cross stitch. And I've adapted the entire sampler to completely in cross stitch. So the model that I'll show you in a moment is completely stitched and cross stitch. And one moment. And here we have the model. Thank you for the patience with my crazy light. So the project itself is completely in cross stitch, and here's my adaptation. Seashell Sampler, Jane Price, 1819. It's a labor of love. I've never actually adapted long satin stitch to cross stitch before, but you can see it did turn out quite well. This is absolutely such a privilege to be able to come to Celebration of Needlework events. They've been around for over 35 years. I used to dream of attending their events, let alone teaching at their events. And here you have the two side by side. Again, only available if you attend in October of 2022, the Celebration of Needlework event on Cape Cod. Okay, before everything falls. So, what else have I been up to? I did mention I have 3 new releases for June. And this has been a dream come true also for me, is to actually be delighted to offer you something very special to me. And I just have to grab it. Okay, sorry about that. So, I am absolutely thrilled to be the owner of something I've always dreamed of owning, and it's a Christmas gift from my husband, and it is, again, something I've been hoping, dreaming, and now so honored and privileged to actually own a Bristol orphanage sampler. And there she is in all her glory. This is the antique Amelia Fox. So beautiful. 1868. Pardon the glare. And again, here you see that beautiful verse. Jesus, permit thy gracious name to stand. There is an 11-page provenance that comes with this chart. And a lot of research was done both by me, Claudia Dutcher-Kistler of Dutch Treat Designs, who is an expert on Bristol orphanage samplers, as well as Becky from Whitney Antiques, from whom my husband obtained the sampler as a Christmas gift for me in 2021. So there she is. What a thrill, honestly. This is an heirloom which my family will hold dear forever. The chart is available soon, and it contains, as I mentioned, 11 pages in booklet form. You might notice I've transitioned to booklets, and I'm delighted to offer 2 companion pieces based on Amelia Fox. The first one that inspired me is also an antique, and her name is Annie Matilda Moss. This is the antique you're looking at from 1872. It's done in greens and beautiful sampler. What was striking to me was while I was graphing and charting the Amelia Fox sampler, I realized that the exact same motifs appear in Annie. And I know from my research that Annie did not attend the Bristol orphanage. She attended very clearly the Daglingworth School. So doing further research, I discovered that the Daglingworth School is only 40 miles from Bristol, and also consulting with Claudia Dutcher-Kistler, she confirmed what I had guessed, is that there are pattern booklets that existed that were common during the time, both in England, Germany, and France, from which many schoolmistresses who prepared samplers for their students to stitch came from these paper pattern booklets. And you might know I have reproduced an antique pattern booklet, not exactly this one, but another one which you can obtain from my website, Cross Stitch Antiques, if you're interested. But this specific motif pattern on this page carries many of the motifs that are both on Bristol's and on the Daglingworth School sampler, stitched by Annie Matilda Moss. Only 4 years after Amelia Fox stitched hers at the Bristol orphanage. So, what more fitting way to honor them both is to release these two samplers at the same time. So we have Annie Matilda Moss, which I recommend stitching on 40 count Lakeside linen vintage meadow rue on 40 count linen. And I would suggest this beautiful color of 103 silks, which is 061. You can see how lovely it looks on the vintage meadow rue, and how fitting that matches the model, which is actually the antique because it's in perfect condition. So likewise, as a companion then, we have Amelia, we have Annie Matilda Moss, and on the back covers you'll see a lot of information about the quick little story I told you, but at much greater length. And I did mention 3, didn't I? Yes, I did. The third one is my own original design. I was just wondering, what if Annie Matilda Moss was an orphan and did attend the Bristol orphanage? Just a quick thought popped in my head, Orphan Annie. My own design, based on the layout of Annie Matilda Moss, that's square, which is not typically a Bristol layout. I'm taking some liberties here, but using motifs from Amelia Fox and adding my own personalization, my initials, the year I stitched it. And you have Orphan Annie. Orphan Annie. I have to laugh because 2 of my daughters actually performed as Orphan Annie in school musicals back when they were in grade school. Here we have the model. Whoops. Oh, I just love this. It's stitched on 40 6 count baby sheet by X Jude Designs with Averiswas silks. Again, in one of those lovely boxes from Old Colonial Designs. There you have it. So, look forward in June to these 3 new releases tied together with similar motifs and inspiration based on Amelia Fox, and we have Annie Matilda Moss and Orphan Annie. So, what else do I do in my free time? I'm inspired by every other designer out there, as I'm sure you are as well. And I long to have time to stitch so many of the samplers that I've collected in my stash, as well as the beautiful new ones that keep coming out. So I might have mentioned this before, but I've been stitching since I was a child, cross-stitching since the early 80s. And I've been collecting charts and stitching other people's designs all these years until about 2005, when I started attending needlework shows and was picked up by a national distributor in 2005. And ever since then, I've been, slowly raising my large family of 14 children, as well as occasionally releasing my designs and my reproductions. In 2017, I kind of went more, put more effort into it and started obtaining more antiques and producing my own reproductions, as well as some original designs, and doing many more trade shows. I do at least 2 or 3 a year, as well as now teaching at guilds and occasional classes like Celebration of Needlework, and sometimes at shops. But long story, so anyway, going back to my stash, I'm sure we've all heard the excitement of releases that so many other people want to stitch but are sometimes out of print. Well, going to my stash, I found something that I didn't even know I had, but I've heard so much about it all these years by other people. And believe it or not, I have Anne Rayner from Threads Through Time. So in my free time, I have actually started Anne Rayner, and I'm stitching her on Fox and Rabbit's Flatbush. In addition to this beautiful sampler, we have her silks. Her silks, which I believe Plum Street offered a conversion, Paulette Stewart, and these silks are available through your local distributor or needlework shop as well. The interesting thing about the Threads Through Time is that she's a local Chicago woman that I actually had the privilege to communicate with and meet back in the 80s, when I was newly married and had just given up my law career to start raising our children full time. And I really honor her. She has done so much history on samplers here in the state of Illinois and the Chicago area, even I believe 1 or 2 from the Chicago Art Institute. So in my free time, as I said, I have started this in her tribute to a local antique reproduction woman who's from my area, who really inspired me 35 years ago. So I have the other 2 companion pieces, I call them, which I'm excited to eventually work on, by Needlework Press, Sarah Stewart Hardman, and Jane Tyndall. Oh, I love the colors. I would love to get all 3 of these up on my wall sometime very soon, which hopefully will happen. And little by little, as they say, does your work get completed. So speaking of work, I am going back to my little shop, the Family Hearth General Store, and continuing some other models I have, which I haven't disclosed everything to you. Some things need to be a secret until the time is right, and it just gives us something more to look forward to. But in the meantime, I hope to see you at an upcoming event. Happy stitching. Enjoy this beautiful spring we're finally having, and may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Until next time, bye-bye. Take care.